This episode of Greenhouse Grower to Grower is sponsored by Bartlett Instrument Company. Bartlett's Head Grower app allows growers to remotely control, monitor, and analyze their facilities from anywhere. You can adjust your settings, get notifications, and receive reports to your email using the platform. The Head Grower app is compatible with Bartlett's Climate Boss, Time Boss, and Weather Boss controllers. Go to bartinst.com to learn more.
Welcome to Greenhouse Grower to Grower, the podcast where we talk to growers from across the greenhouse industry about market trends, innovation, their biggest challenges and opportunities, and more. I'm Brian Sparks, editor of Greenhouse Grower. In the next few episodes of the Greenhouse Grower to Grower podcast, we want to spotlight growers who will be speaking at Cultivate 24. After all, who better to learn from than your peers? In this episode, I talked to Mary Carrasquillo, Vice President of Marketing and E-commerce at Costa Farms. Mary has more than 25 years of experience in creating brand strategies for companies such as Whirlpool, KitchenAid, and Food Saver. In 2021, she joined the Costa Farms team, and she currently focuses on developing and managing digital and e-commerce programs. Mary will be joining a panel at Cultivate 24 on Sunday, July 14th to talk about strategies for increasing revenue in 2025 and beyond. In this episode, I talk with Mary about the continued growth of e-commerce and horticulture over the past few years, best practices and strategies, and how the consumer shopping experience overall is evolving. Here's our conversation. So let's get started by talking about your background and then how that has kind of led you to not just being in the floriculture industry, but specifically your current role at Costa Farms.
Yes. So I've been in marketing for the past probably 20 plus years. And I started marketing more with CPG companies, like more consumer product goods. I work with companies like Whirlpool and brands like Newell. And where Newell brands, where they have brands like Graco, Calphalon, Mr. Coffee, Coleman, that they're very consumer driven.
Mm.
So in my previous experiences, I have the opportunity to build, brand strategies, launch new brands, work with e-commerce and digital. And actually, I had the great opportunity to learn when we started, developing all the company's transformation in terms of digital, right? Like when we start putting not only the e-commerce, but also social media, right? From Facebook to Instagram up to TikTok. After the COVID time frame, in about, it was probably 2021, when I decided that I was looking to change industry.
Okay.
And at that time, I came across from one of the openings in Costa. And I was very, very curious. First of all, because for me, it was the first time that I will be working for a live good company, which is the challenges and complexities, for sure. It's a different set, right, of dynamics compared when you sell, I don't know, like a Sharpie versus a blender versus a plant. So I had the opportunity to work on that change during August 2021. And my first assignment, it was to revamp the Costa Farms brand itself, right? So I found that interesting because it was a great moment where I can bring all of my experience all together in a new industry for me. So at the same time, my background helped me, right, in terms of my skills, but also the excitement of getting to know a new industry, a category. It just added, the cherry on top for the project. And that's how we changed the logo, and we're being, investing more on this digital transformation for Costa.
Okay. Before we talk, all the ins and outs of e-commerce, I'm curious as to, the learning experience, both for you and for the Costa team. So you learning about this new industry, and then I'm sure the folks at Costa as well, incorporating your experience into what they can do then. How did that process work?
That process works very, very nice. I think I remember the first step that I took when I started my position in Costa, it was I interview over 150 people across the entire organization
Okay.
from different levels, from operation, from marketing, from sales, from R&D, just to get to know the people, get to know the culture, get to know the products. On the other side, the group that I was working with me in the marketing, they were learning the processes, right?
Sure.
When you talk about brand strategy or you talk about transformation in digital, even though that sounds very general, in order for you to get into the right outcome, right for your brand, you have certain processes. So I took the opportunity to develop different type of workshops with the team where we were over those processes, and with the information that we collect from our internal people, plus the knowledge from the team that they've been working for Costa for a couple of years. And in addition of consumer insights, we were able together to put the plan completely together and with all of our road mapping, right, on the steps that we're going to follow to make sure that at the end we have a brand that speaks to our consumer and also fit into this category of floriculture.
Okay.
So very interesting because the team as well, they have some challenges, right? Because usually Costa was a very wholesale brand oriented, right? So we were pushing a lot our products, but not necessarily the brand. So that process of mindset switch, it took a significantly time, right, to the team to start thinking about, oh, let's talk about the consumer. What are their needs? What are their behavior? How our brand with our product could fit and fill out that need. So it was very interesting. And at the same time, for me also, as I mentioned, it's completely different in terms of timing, the complexities, incorporated those elements into our framework as well. What a realization for me that it's not a one size fits all, right? When you speak about processes. So we also actually incorporate an additional framework in order for us to make sure that we took into consideration, right, the differences among the different categories.
Okay. As you talk about e-commerce, and we've seen it, progress in this industry, especially, in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, and, a lot of growers went in that direction. Can you talk about what you're seeing in terms of how it's progressed? And then you really kind of go back to what you mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, the differences between how you approach e-commerce from a live goods producer versus a hard goods producer.
Yes, that's a great point. First of all, I'm gonna turn 3 years in the next 2 months with Costa, and I can tell you one of the biggest things that surprises me is that seeing more players getting into the e-commerce space. Right, 3 years ago, there were at least like 5 top players that they were not participating with their direct to consumer sites or with pages in big portals, right? Like Amazon or Walmart.com, etc. And based on the history from the team as well, that they've been working here since 2016 when Costa decided to start putting their products online with our vendors and customers. The biggest change has been probably the assortment, right? At the beginning, everybody started very simple, right? With very hardened, products like cacti and succulent, easy to pack. Meanwhile, if you fast forward where we are right now, we now see more sophistication on the assortment, from hanging baskets, from gifting products, right? Like flowering, blooming. We see, competitors doing a very, very good job in outdoor as well, which is, as you know, outdoor is probably one of the biggest challenge, because when you chop this specific category at the store level, you usually attracted by the flower and the color and the condition of the plants. When you ship in online, it's a little bit different, right? You tend to ship with bots, not necessarily all flowers, because you don't want the flower to die during the process. So educate as well the consumer behaviors online versus brick and mortar and manage expectations. I think it's one of the areas that I believe that it's significantly improved in the past years. Like
Okay.
a lot of our, and I said my competitors and Costa, etc., we are all focusing a lot on have a very open communication with the consumers and just make sure that we in this process we are educating them as well.
Okay.
And another change that we have seen is like at the beginning, we only talk about, oh no, it's only the young generation, right? The Gen Zs and the millennials, the ones that are buying online. I can tell you that you can see a shift as well on how that pipe is breaking up right now. We see more Gen X, we see more baby boomers as well, like going and jumping into this wave of trying to buy also products online when you see now the breaks between the different age range. And it's
Sure.
very interesting because right now it's getting more balanced in all of this group representation of age compared to previous year that there was more like very heavy over index with the millennials, for example.
Right.
And so that type of behavior, it's telling you that people are getting more confidence, right, when they're buying online the products.
Okay. We hear a lot about inventory management and inventory control being a key issue. Can you kind of talk about how that weighs into everything?
I think that's the biggest and the tough part, as you know, right? Like, I'm going to speak about our processes a little
Right.
bit. Like, as you know, we have the majority of our farms are located down South Florida, right in the Miami area, in the Redlands. That's where we do have our facility for e-commerce as well. And basically, what we're trying to do with our facility is to maintain inventory between 10 to 10 days, 7 to 10 days. Like that's his, and I put this and I do the air quotes because sometimes it's depending, right? Over the summertime, I can tell you that I don't want to have in a long period of time plants in our facility because as you know, heat in Miami, it could be brutal, right? And even though that our facility has kind of like a greenhouse in the back, etc., we're not a greenhouse, right? So we don't have the conditions to keep it. So over the summer, we are actually having daily calls. We have a stand-up call like 9:30 in the morning, where we are talking with our SRNA team, which is the replenishing group, understanding what is available to us, talking with our commercial team to understand as well the promotions, right? Or the launches, just to make sure that that we can prepare the supply chain properly, right? With the right products and do the preparation of those products on time so we don't avoid a time when we need and when we start receiving the orders from the consumers.
Sure.
That's one thing. The other challenge that we have as well, weather is the worst, I believe so, because when you don't have the very heat summer or warm summer or hot summer, we have very cold winter. And it happened to us, right? Like during most of the time, December to beginning of March is when we start applying like heat packs, for example. But that is not guarantee you that the plant, it's going to get. So we're actually developing it's a weather application where they can help us with the forecast by geographies. So we make decisions of turning on, turning off by geography. So if we see that we're going to expect it like snow blizzards in the East Coast, we're trying to minimize or we delay the shipping for those products available to that geography. And we say, hey, you know what? We're not going to ship you until this day due to the weather conditions. So we try to mitigate, like people receive a product that they're not going to be satisfied at the end.
Okay.
So those nuances, you don't have it when you ship, for example, a durable product, right? You ship I don't know, if you ship a tent or you ship a blender or any other, a pot, you don't need that. So those complexities, that's those elements that we added, right? When we are evaluating and assessing the entire supply chain.
Okay.
And the last point that probably I'm going to talk to you, it's also make sure about the locations. As you know, we acquired a new farm early in this year that was Battlefield, right? In the Rapids, Virginia. That's one of the advantage, of course, of getting their beautiful perennials and annual programs, but also we're looking to ship also from that facility in the future. Products like the amaryllis, that for example, we haven't had those type of products in the past in our assortment. So that's what we're trying now to do with this new facility. And instead of bringing inventory down to South Florida, we ship everything from that facility. So also another big opportunity for us is leverage some of our locations outside of the Miami area.
Sure. I like that approach. Yeah. And the other thing that I think of is, Costa really excels at consumer education post-plant purchase and talking to consumers. Now that you have a plant, here's how to best maintain it at home, which I would imagine plays an important role with something like e-commerce, because if you're buying a plant at the store, you can talk to whoever you're buying it from and they can give you all the information that you want. Buying it online, it's got to be a little bit different story. So I would imagine that the Costa experience in consumer education plays a role in this.
Yes, definitely. As you know, we do have in Costa in-house one of the subject matter expert, which is Justin Hancock. So he is actually the person that help us significantly to develop all of this material to help to educating the people and the consumer in this journey in both sides, like indoor and outdoor.
Yeah.
Now, on top of that, we are having actually a customer service group that actually we do have for people that they are dedicated completely, to connect with consumers through different vehicles that we have. We have emails. We just launched actually yesterday our first chatbot in our website. So right now also we're doing, based on all the historic information for the past years, with the chatbot, we're trying to serve some of our consumers immediately where we some, frequent questions.
Yeah.
And also we do have a QR code that every person that receive an online product, they can scan it and immediately they can fill out a form with their questions as well. So we're trying now to have different touch points with the consumers. On top of that, we were able to change our CRM recently. So we are now moving to HubSpot, which provided us kind of like a more automatization with information about the plant. So every content that Justin developed for us, we do have what we call it the seat of knowledge in HubSpot. So our agents they have access instantly, right? For all of the information that they need, and they can chat directly with Justin in case that they have a question that they don't have the answer handy. So those pieces are, or processes are helping us to be more effective with the consumers.
Okay. One of the things that I want to touch on here is, we've seen more growers get into e-commerce over the past few years, but there's certainly still a lot that have not. So for those who haven't taken that step, what sort of advice do you have for them on here's what you really need to know if you're going to make that jump into e-commerce?
I will suggest 3 things. Number one, make sure that you don't try to launch with a big assortment of products, because it's complicated. It's I think when I met the team that originally worked on the inception of Costa Online, we started with very few products. And I think that that's a key, right? Because first of all, you learn, right? From everything, from the supply chain perspective, from the behavior of your consumer, pricing as well, so you can understand what is your sweet price, and also the engagement from the side of your customers. That's number one. The second one is think about start first with going into platforms that already existed, right? So you mitigate risk in terms of payments or technology behind of your website. So you can definitely, work with some of the existing platforms. There are plenty of it, or go directly to some customers that they have brick and mortar and online and offer your products first there.
Okay.
And then third, if you already have your assortment and then you already have your test in different platforms, then when you think about your own platform, again, start little. You don't need to create your own from scratch website. There is definitely, platform like Shopify that helps you with templates, etc., right? And you can build quickly a site, and they're very, very friendly, and they also offers, a full support through their system. And the software, when you look at it, is not crazy in terms of the pricing of what you need to pay for the software on a monthly base. And on top of that, most of these software, they also charge like a minimum amount for transactions, right? So it also is very important that you have all of those costs in mind. And last but not least, this is the bonus, the content, right? It's very important, the content that you offer for your consumers, and make sure that the product that you are presenting in e-commerce truly represent the product that you're selling. Because I can tell you that the online consumer is more demanding, right? If I see a plant in a picture that is supposed to be red, don't send it orange, or don't say, even though that the plants comes very beautiful, etc., people expect it a red plant. And you know what I mean? So the content is extremely important, the photography, the description, and to your point, the education at the end of the day. That's where they consume back and they keep this two-way communication with you.
Okay. It's funny. So we know that, that there are obviously more consumers going online to buy, but just beyond e-commerce, the ways that consumers shop, and then also the types of consumers themselves in the past couple of years really continues to evolve. Kind of taking your background with branding into this, how do you see today's plant consumer changing or evolving in terms of how they're shopping for plants and who that customer might be?
Definitely, you have a more demanding consumer and more well-educated. I think that, and even the category in general, and this not only is for online, this also apply brick and mortar as well.
Okay.
But like people now, especially the consumer, and not necessarily you need to be a hobbyist or a plant expert, but people expect the product to have certain quality. I think that that's one of the behaviors that, if you're listening of what consumers said in different forums, right, from Facebook groups to Instagram to Reddit, like, it's interesting how people talk about, like, oh, I buy this product and I have 2 cuts in the same plant, or 3 cuts, or only 1 cut. And in the sophistication that they're adding into their knowledge, it's a much higher than 10, 20 years ago. And even though that I was not involved with this category, I was always a wannabe gardener. I grew up in Puerto Rico all my life by planting, trees with my mom, and plants and gardening, etc. So when I moved in my early 20s to Miami in 1999, I always like to have my garden here and my house plants. But the level that I now am involved with that category is much higher, even me before going into Costa, because you're feeding more with information across the board on how you can succeed, etc. Remember, the first fear that people have before buying a plant is to kill the plant, right?
Yeah.
People are fear, they say, oh my goodness, I am so bad. So as soon as you cross that fear, you have your first plan and you are indeed successful with that plan, That's why the education portion is extremely important. You get hooked up and you want to have more and more plants, and then say, okay, I started with this small, let me just propagate it. And that's what makes our consumer being very different now.
Sure.
And of course, COVID helps a lot by having people more time in their houses and spend more time with their plants. But I think that people now are more into it. And this is something that is very personal for them. And I also believe that this is one of the categories that you have a lot of high level of emotional connection with the product. Remember, there are brands in other categories that spend millions and millions of dollars trying to connect emotionally your product with the consumer. This category has that connection organically, right? So that is a great advantage that us in this category have. That's why what our responsibility is to make sure that we make the consumers successful in this journey.
Yeah, and I like that emotional approach you're talking about, because you hear so often, how do we better connect, what some would say isn't always an essential product, to make it essential to the consumer. And you talk about beauty, you talk about some health, but the emotional connection is something that it's almost hard to grasp, but it's not directly in front of you. But to your point, the more that you can build on that emotional connection, can really only help not just you as one grower, but across the entire industry as well.
Correct. Remember, the cultural pop is changing. Like I remember, I'm a Gen X, right? They tell you, oh, before you have a kid, have a dog. Remember, take care of your animal, take care of your pet. Now it's not like that. And now it's even before the dog, have a plant. Be a plant parent, take care. When you're successful, then you got a dog. And then if you think to have a kid, you have a kid, right? But even in our society, we're changing, right? The way. So that's how I see that the consumer has been evolving, and that's what makes this category to keep growing, right? And that's why a lot of the growers, including us, right, we're putting effort in R&Ds and innovation to keep bringing, new plants, new varieties, new genesis into the mix, because really people are enjoying that.
So I know you're going to be part of a panel discussion at Cultivate next month, talking not just about this, but just more overall, looking ahead to 2025 and really beyond, it sounds like. Can you kind of just give an overview on what role you might be playing in that panel, and then what you hope that attendees can kind of get out of that?
Yes, so we're going to have a very nice group of peers within the industry that they will be sharing their experiences, right? To your point of how the category has been evolving in the past years, but more important, how also digital e-commerce could keep having a very high role, important role to the growth, right? For the next 10 years of the horticulture. How we're going to be progressing. So stay tuned. Hopefully you can come and join us, because it's going to be very, very entertaining. We have people from different backgrounds and different experiences within the industry that they definitely will be bringing their thoughts and their point of view on how we could maintain this category relevant and very well engaged with the consumers.
Okay. Just last couple of questions that I have for you is, if you look ahead to the future of this industry, what excites you the most about where we're headed, not just with Costa, but also the floriculture industry as a whole? What excites you the most about the future of this industry?
Yeah, there are a few things. I think that definitely everything that we're being influenced in the society, like AI, ChatGPT, etc., is basically getting into our category in a certain way. Like, for example, we just launched a partnership with an application the name is Greg App. And, those are the ones that you just scan it, you enroll into the system. So they even have like a snooze button for, watering your plants, an alarm here for moving. You can take a picture. So all of this AI and all of this technology, it's going to come to us. And not only from the side of how we can serve better the consumer, but also on the grower side, right? Like we are now applying more AI into our greenhouses, right? Just to have cameras that identify, when your plant needs watering, right? In the greenhouse, correct?
Yeah.
So that is very, very exciting, right? Because that will be helping us, right, at the same time to keep preserving the quality of the product that we're going to launch and we put out there. And on top of that, I think the other piece is exciting, that I have a lot of excitement. It's on the eco-friendly piece, right? I know that Costa has been, working on different things as other colleagues in the industry, right? Like less invasive to the environment materials. We're talking about like washer trays, for example. Like, yes, let's recycle those grower pots and let's put it right in other products.
Yeah.
We're talking about also coconut coir instead of peat. So there is a lot of energy about that, and that's what excited me, because I seen a lot of growers taking big steps in those particular areas, and we still have a long way to go. But the fact that the different leadership from Costa and other peers in the industry are taking, resources, investing, etc., to move, it's good. It's very positive, and it give us, more desire to keep pushing, right, to protect our environment. So definitely those are the pieces that I am very, very excited for the future.
Okay. The last question I have is, we've referenced a few plants here and there. So just at the personal level, is there a particular plant that really excites you right now that you feel like I have to have this in my own home?
Yes, I always, when I started in Costa, actually, they gave me a Hoya lipstick plant.
Okay.
And I remember it was a hanging basket, very tiny. And I was like, oh my God, this is a plant for an expert. I am a new plant parent. But the plant is amazing. I think that for a new plant parent that likes plants, it makes you to feel very successful in your journey. Like,
sure.
The first time that I saw that beautiful pink bloom, and I have over like 8 of them. I love it. I even posted it in Costa, etc. I get a lot of excitement. So that's one of my favorite plant, definitely. And then my second favorite plant is my Anglionemas, the pink ones. I love them. I have my backyard door with both plants at the entrance, and I love the color that they give you to the green, and you don't have a bloom, so you always have a color, right? Because sometimes the bloom comes and then die, and then they rebloom always, but this one always have the pink touch in your gardening. So I love it. Those are my two favorites. The one is more indoor and the other one's more outdoor.
I like that a lot. Well, I think that both Costa and the floriculture industry as a whole is lucky to have you in the market with us. And, again, as we talked about, I encourage folks to attend that panel at Cultivate and to learn more about, where the future is headed for this industry. So thanks for all of your insights today.
Thank you, Brian, for having me, and hopefully I can see you in Cultivate.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining us. You can learn more at greenhousegrower.com. Please subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen, and please leave us a rating as it helps other podcast listeners find the show.